So since we've created a way to log in, we now have the ability to have like logged in user only content. That is, you require them to log in to see certain content. This is actually really, really cool. Now, of course, down the line, we'll make it even smarter where it's user logged in content for that particular user. Right now, it's going to be for any logged in user. So let's go ahead and play around with this. I'm just going to scroll up to my home page and I'm going to say premium content is equal to yeah. So we've got regular content and premium content. So if we jump into that homepage.html, in here, we're actually going to build a place for that premium content. So I'll just say div class equals to row. And I'm roughly going to do the exact same thing as before. Except this time, it's going to be our premium content. Okay, so there's a couple ways on how I can actually render this stuff out. So I'm going to tab that in. So number one, I can just have it render, right? So if I refresh in here, there it is. Yeah, rendering. And I can say, you know, H1 premium. Okay, so I can refresh that. And now what I can do is come back into my view. And really, I can just cut this out and say if request.user.is authenticated, then I can say context equals to, we want to put that premium content in there, just like that. I refresh in here. My user should still be logged in, so I'll go to admin and click log out to log out. So premium is showing up, but the content is not. So that means that, well, we might need to do some more things on our homepage. This actually gives me an opportunity to tell you what you could do in the homepage as well. So I can do a condition in here. So I can say if premium content. So if it's even in there, I can put it in, right? So if it's actually being passed to the view, I can use that condition. But what I can also do is say if request.user.is authenticated, no parentheses, but just like that, I can also refresh in here as well. So notice that my user wasn't logged in, so I can't see that stuff. So I'll go ahead and log in that user now, and we'll just do the login process. I did log in. If I go back home, I see that says premium. Yeah. Cool. So that is how awesome that login portion is. So what we need to do now is create that register portion. It's actually not a whole lot different, except we are going to actually create a user this time. Instead of just logging in, we'll actually create a user. And I'm also going to change where the login goes. I'm just going to have it go to the home page. Okay, so on this page, we want to first off create our register form. I'm going to go ahead and copy the login form and change it to register form. Now the register form, we might have a few more fields. One of them might be email, right? We might have the email field in there. Of course, you can have all that styling if you want. I'm going to just leave it out for now because we don't need it to actually illustrate what we're doing. You should know enough already. But the next thing I might want to have is a confirm password. So like password 2. So I can say label equals to confirm password. Okay. So now I've got my register form. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, import it into my views, and bring it into my register form. And now notice I just changed the form itself, and everything else is roughly the same as it was. And then inside of my context, I will do the same thing as I did before with login. So I'll put that form there, and then I'll put this context here, and we'll just leave it as that for now. All right, so we've got a register form. We now need to make our register.html. So register.html, and we'll copy login.html. Save that. Okay, and then finally in our URLs, we want to bring in that register page, and we'll copy the login, change it to register, and put in that view. So we go into register. Okay, so we've got our 4 fields here. Cool. So now what I need to do is make sure all of this stuff is working. The first and foremost thing, we're going to look at here and we see I actually have two fields, right? So two password fields. They're going to have to work with one another. So we're going to have to go ahead and do that. But first of all, I'll just say CFE2 @gmail.com. Password, I'll just have it in as learn code still. I'll hit submit and we'll take a look at our terminal. Notice that we've got everything, all that data is coming in. Cool. So now what we need to do is introduce a new clean. So when I do define clean underscore whatever field name, I can absolutely do it that way. Or what I could do is say self, and then I'll say our data equals to self.cleaned data. Okay, so it's the data. Of course, it's much like this. And I'll just do password equals to self.cleanData.get password. And then password 2 being roughly the same, except a different field. And we'll just say if password 2 is not equal to password, then we'll say raise forms.validation error, passwords must match. Otherwise, we'll just return data. Okay? Very simple. A way to actually make sure that a registration form is working. So let's make it not work. I'll give the wrong password. Doesn't matter, they don't match. And now it says passwords must match. Whew. Very, very simple. So if I have them match, hit submit, no errors happen. I go back into terminal, I see that stuff. Cool. So the next portion, let's go ahead and go into a new window here. We're using the user object. So you could follow along with the documentation. I'm not going to actually follow along that way, but I will be doing this command. So I'm going to go ahead and do inside of my view. I'm going to come up. This is where you want that logic. Inside of contrib.auth, we're going to import get user model. I'm going to scroll down to my register page. And I'll just say user equals to get user model. And then we're going to say user.objects.create user. Right, so create user here. And it's going to be the username. So much like we've seen before, I'll just grab these two and add one more thing, and that is the email. And email. All we have to do here then is username, email, and password. So new user is equal to that. And we'll say, we'll just go ahead and print out what that new user is, and we'll save it. Okay. So I'm going to let's go back into our incognito window. Got my new user here. Learn code, hit submit. We'll go into terminal. I see I have CFE user 2 password. Let's try it again. I'll hit submit. Unique constraint failed. I have an error. Well, this is actually a validation problem. So we go back into our form. What we want to do is make sure we don't have duplicate usernames. That's really easy to do. We can say define clean username, and it takes in self. So username is equal to this same stuff, but just the username. And now all we want to do is check to see if that username exists. So we're going to do from django.contrib.auth import get user model. Say user equals to get user model. And we're going to just say QS. We'll talk about query sets later, but I'm just going to show you it so you understand. User.objects.filter and username equals to username. And I'll say if qs.exists, we'll just return arrays forms.validation error. Username is taken. And then we will just return username otherwise. So let's go back in here. Try that again, CFE either one, CFE2, whatever. And password, it should be objects. Sorry about that. Refresh, continue form submission. Username is taken. Oh, and hey, what if we only want one email? Well, guess what? It's roughly the same. You say clean email. And you just change this to email. Email is taken. Cool. There you go. That's how it's done. Let's try and save that again. Refresh. There we go. Email username is taken. Let's try that. Email should be taken as well. So let's just add in some stuff here. And let's try another one. ABC, hit submit. Email is taken. There you go. That is registration. It's simple. It doesn't have all of the nuts and bolts that we will need eventually, but the point is made. Hopefully you figured out exactly how all this stuff works. The big question marks to you should now be, what the heck is this? How do I use that? And what the heck is this? How do I use that? Those things will be covered in the next section because it's a little bit more advanced than what we're doing here. But nonetheless, you now have a way to register users, log in users, and also allow them to see certain content on some pages. I think that's pretty cool. Hopefully you do too. The next few videos we have to do is actually set up a way to see our own custom HTML, CSS, and images. Stay with us.